So in this demonstration we're going to look at how to make a character move. This is a gingerbread man that I've created out of 5 objects. Yours could be more complicated, but this is just a simple 5-part character. We have the torso and the head, the left arm, the right arm, and the 2 legs as well. When this moves, there will be some gaps, so it's certainly not a perfect character design. You can see how as the arm lifts, it exposes some gaps and sections that are not very smooth with animation. The same goes over here. That rotation point I'll leave there. You can see how it definitely exposes the flaws in the character's design. These are most noticeable, I feel, in the legs. And I would encourage you to make sure that when you design characters in broken sections, you have a bit of overlap. And what that will do is just hide some of these white spaces that might look a little bit unfinished when a person views your animation. Anyway, we'll ignore that for now. So with the torso underneath and the arms and legs on top, as the arms and legs move, it's going to look as much as possible like a connected character. And that's obviously the effect that we're going for here. So before we start to connect these figures together, what we need to do is to make sure that the alignment is as close to what we want as possible. So what I'm going to do is just move them around and use our free transform tool to rotate various sections, move the rotation points into place, and this will hopefully give us a good starting point before we use the tool called the bone tool. So this arm's quite high. I'm just going to rotate it down into more of a natural position, and that's now working well. And this arm is also a little bit high. Let's move that into a better position. You can also use the arrow keys to move things around, and that's fine. So now we have all our sections ready to move and to animate. Next step is to use our selection tool and select all those different symbols together. So having done that, we can now go over and click on the bone tool. And what this will do is allow us to click from the middle out to the shoulder, from the middle out to the other shoulder, from the middle down to the left leg, and from the middle down to the right leg. And we've now connected those 5 elements together. You'll also notice that the armature layer now appears in the timeline. And what this is telling us with that little man figure is that we have connected different symbols that we can now animate together. This is now effectively a connected motion tween. All we need to do now is to go into our pointer tool and start moving various parts around as the time moves on. But you'll notice that it looks a bit strange. If I was to drag this arm, you can see how too much of it's moving. We just want to rotate that connector. We don't want this arm moving at all. So I'll do Command Z or Control Z to undo that last action. And we now need to go in and make some small fine-tuning adjustments. How do we do this? I'm going to click on one of those segments. And in the Properties panel, you'll now see all these rotation and translation options. If I untick joint rotation, when I now move the arm, you'll see that the actual extension is locked into place. Let's just go around and make sure that that change has been copied into all of the 4 limbs, and it has. So now as I move things around, it's just moving that outer pivot point. We're no longer moving the arms that connect the sections together, and that's what we want. So now that we have made that change to the properties, we simply need to make our way through the timeline and to change the positions so that the character dances. So using our selection tool, I'm going to start him in a fairly static pose. You can also use the arrow key to move these sections around. So that's our starting position. Once again, I'm using a combination of the arrow keys and mouse movements. Starting pose. If we go out to 10, what we'll do is make his legs kind of jump to the side and his arms can swing this way. I'll just use the arrow keys to kind of close up that gap. And here as well. And you'll notice if we go back, the character's now starting to move. Let's go to frame 20 and let's reverse that action going over this way. This is again a combination of clicking and dragging the shapes, but also going through and using the arrow key to make finer adjustments. Frame 30, let's do something a bit different. And a few more changes here. You can also see how quick it is and how easy it is to simply move things around, especially when they're all connected. So this tool is a great feature in Animate. And now let's finish with a really disconnected and bizarre looking star jump. We can also select all and move them in that manner too. So he's now doing a star jump. He's now going to fold his arms down very quickly and come into a finishing pose. Okay, so you can see it's a bit rough, but for the purposes of time, I'm just going to get through to this end point. Selecting all again, so he's now touching down. We could even do a bit of squash and stretch here by making his body compress a little. So let's now press the enter key and watch the animation.